City in May of 2013, and I came across KCsourcelink at that time, which is actually a program of the University of Missouri, Kansas City. So I wanted to stay in higher ed and found KCsourcelink, and I started snooping around to see, what is this company? What do they do? Why are they associated with the university? And really fell in love with the program and what was happening, fell in love with Kansas City and everything that was going on with the city at that time. So moved to Kansas City in May of 2013 and started with KCsourcelink at that time. And I've shortly met my husband, and we have established our lives in Kansas City and love what I'm doing with KCsourcelink and helping businesses start and grow, and then also being civically involved in the community and growing our family here.
Well, thanks again for having us. I appreciate that background. Maybe tell those who might not be familiar sort of an overview of KCsourcelink, if you would, please.
Yes. So KCsourcelink is a bi-state initiative, again, program of UMKC. We are part of the UMKC Innovation Center. So we're a bi-state initiative working 18 counties of both sides of the state line. We have a network of over 240 programs and services within that geographic area that all offer free and low-cost assistance for businesses. So KCsourcelink networks those 240 organizations together so that for a business owner, they oftentimes hear there's lots of resources out there for businesses, but they don't know where to go or what to do. So KCsourcelink then offers a one-stop shop for that business owner. So we have a hotline. It is staffed by actual people. Businesses can call in 816-235-6500, talk to an actual person about their business, and that can be anywhere from I have an idea, I think I want to start, through inception, growth, and prospective exit of that business. And we could talk to them about where they're at, where they want to go, create a personal action plan for that business, connecting them with the people, the programs, the resources that they need to complete each step of that plan. We then follow up with them to make sure everything's going okay and kind of check in to see if we can offer any help. Since we are a program of the university, everything that we do is free for all businesses, and it's really our goal to make entrepreneurship easier. So we also then kind of identify gaps in the network. So we have our program and our service providers on one side that we work with, and then we have thousands of entrepreneurs and business owners that we talk with every year. So we can identify gaps in services. When a business owner needs something and there's not a program or organization that can help them with that, we then work with the partners in the network to try and develop a new program to fill that gap so that our entrepreneurs can really gain access to services anytime throughout that business journey.
Very good, thank you. So if my math is right, you've been there about 7 years. How has KCsourcelink grown / changed in the time that you've been there? What's been the most noticeable parts of its journey?
We have kind of grown into an ecosystem development organization. So at our heart, we operate a hotline and a network of resources, and that's always what we're going to do. But we've also been able to kind of grow and develop in order to do more of this ecosystem development. I hear that term a lot, and I think it's kind of fluffy, so I like to dig into that a little bit more. So that people have a better understanding of kind of what we're doing behind the scenes. We have small business owners on the call today, and it is hard, and there's not a book, there's not a path for that. However, when we're looking at the overall system, we've discovered that there are 6 pillars for entrepreneurship. And so KCsourcelink is working on those 6 pillars to try and help the business owners have a more efficient and effective experience and really create the jobs that are being created in Kansas City. So we operate the hotline, we have the network of resources, but now I've talked about these 6 pillars. So we're working on the resources, and I touched on that a little bit. We've done a lot of work on networked capital. So making sure that all businesses, depending on what type of business they are or their stage of business, can access the capital that is needed for that business to start and grow in Kansas City. We also do a lot of work on the pipeline of ideas and research coming out of our institutions, be that corporate organizations, be that universities or research organizations throughout the region, and commercializing those. We have actually, I have my book right here. Right before we went into quarantine, we launched corporate engagement. So looking at 5 strategic ways our large and our small firms can engage with one another. So it's been an interesting growth experience over the last 7 years, and kind of seeing everything that once an area has this well-connected network, all the awesome things that a network can do. We then measure all of that progress. We report it out to the community through WeCreateKC.com, so that the community as a whole can know where we're sitting and what's going on. And it also allows a spotlight to be shined on the Kansas City region as a startup metro and a small business engine.
Very good. I appreciate that. Anybody have a question before we pivot into some more current events with Jenny?
I had a thing I wanted to ask Jenny to explain a little bit more. So KCsourcelink, as I understand it, was one of a kind, first of a kind. It's now become sort of a franchise. There's a Missouri SourceLink, and take it from there, Jenny, but a whole bunch more that I think is kind of commanded and led by the people in Kansas City.
True. Yes, that is true. So in 2003, Kansas City came together and said, we need to do something for entrepreneurs and small businesses, but they didn't really know what to do. So actually the Kauffman Foundation granted UMKC some funds and to figure out what should we do. And from there, they hired Maria Myers, who developed KCsourcelink. So looking at, again, networking the entrepreneurial support organizations to one another in order to focus on kind of infrastructure development rather than focusing on the technical assistance for businesses, because there are so many resources for entrepreneurs and businesses already. But the gap was those entrepreneurs didn't know which resource to go to. So hence KCsourcelink was founded. And that happened in 2003. And as anyone that works in nonprofit knows, you need to figure out how you're going to make money. So we developed our own technologies that allow us to connect with entrepreneurs, connect with resources, and then do overall measurement and development of the infrastructure for entrepreneurs. So we are able to license the technology that we've developed into communities throughout the United States. So as Rich mentioned, KCsourcelink was founded in 2003. We found out that the technology we use can be licensed into communities across the US. And we also are front runners in the entrepreneurship as a form of economic development. So we do a lot of consulting across the United States as well. So from our offices here in Kansas City, we operate KCsourcelink and Missouri SourceLink. Within the UMKC Innovation Center, we also have programs such as Whiteboard to Boardroom, Digital Sandbox, the Small Business Development Center, Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And then we have SourceLink, which is our licensing arm. So we actually kind of help networks from Seattle to San Juan across the United States. And again, all that is happening right out of Kansas City.
It's heady stuff. It's really cool. Tell us a little bit. Let's start with the SourceLink world. What changes have you either been forced to make or elected to make as a result of a new perspective? You know, effectively March 17th, everything went into shutdown. How did that impact your specific world? And then what I'd like to do is talk about what you're seeing in the broader landscape.
I actually sat down when things started to happen. I think people automatically flipped into emergency mode and just started doing as fast as we could. And then all of a sudden sat back and thought, what has happened? What's going on? So I actually did a timeline of what happened throughout the months of March and April. And so looking at, we actually held a large scale in-person event on March 10th. So people, and at that time, people were out and were kind of joking around a little bit and doing the elbow bumps and stuff. And, you know, what's happening with this? So people were talking about COVID-19, but everyone was still comfortable meeting in person and kind of looking at what does this mean and what are we going to do? By March 15th, KCsourcelink had popped up a resources for businesses during COVID-19, just talking about updates and kind of what was going on as we were watching things develop. That week of March 15th was a Sunday. Throughout that week, we had already launched a survey for entrepreneurs and small businesses to see what's happening. What do you need? What can we do? We had transitioned our staff to working from home. We were helping the network of service providers access technologies in order to transition their programs and services from home. It was interesting. We saw that we talk about our businesses all the time and our businesses needing to access the technologies and the supports in order to work from home or figure out what the new normal is. But it's actually all organizations. We saw a lot of our business support organizations kind of shut down for a week or two because they didn't know how to operate remotely either. So it was a lot of working with the support providers so that they could transition to offering services so that we could then get our businesses connected with the services that they needed. We also were able to, I mentioned, launch this survey. So then we could work with local organizations in order to help AltCap launch their small business relief fund that was able to garner funds and go live April 1st. So that announcement was actually made March 31st. So if you look at really a 2-week time frame, that 2 weeks was absolutely crazy, as I'm sure most of you realized. Through KCsourcelink, we saw our requests through our hotline. We were able to implement technology so we could still answer the hotline within our homes. And we saw our requests increase by more than 300% from the top of March to the end of March. Then moving into April, we saw a shift kind of through March. People were calling it and saying, you know, I had to shut my business down. How am I going to make revenue? How am I going to market my business? How am I going to tell people I'm still here, I'm still open? And then in April, we saw a drastic shift into, I need funding. I need grants, I need loans, I need access to tax incentives for my business, and I need it now. Kim mentioned kind of getting the money of the incentives that are coming through into the hands of these businesses. And we saw a lot of money trying to get into those business arms relatively quickly, especially when you look at governments being involved and seeing the federal government putting money into the hands of businesses. That's the fastest we've seen anything like that happen. I think most of us also saw then there were some issues with that as it was coming out, but that monetary policy that passed through and getting those funds has been able to save some of our businesses. As we've gone through then and looking at reopening, we've had questions with businesses. and those answers are constantly changing. So we're trying to keep that information as updated and accurate. And we are still updating our COVID page for small business resources and updates.
What, I remember taking the survey, and I think you probably addressed some of the things you did to address the results of the survey, but what specific things did you learn from that?
Well, we've done a couple rounds of surveys. So we've really been able to watch, and I kind of touched on this too, through our hotline and through the survey work that we were able to do, we're able to watch the transitioning needs of our businesses throughout the course of this pandemic. And really, this is the first time that our small businesses have led a recession. So our small businesses were hit hard, they were hit fast. We saw the majority of our small businesses close down or come to drastic halts in what they were able to do, be that because customers couldn't get to their business, they couldn't come into those businesses. We saw shifts in supply chains for our businesses, or even contractors, 1099s, freelancers, their clients had a holdup in their ability to process payments coming in, so weren't able to pay those individual contractors either. So it has been disheartening, but also interesting to watch kind of how connected all of our businesses are. As that has been happening, and you can kind of watch that on the back end of things, we've also seen a lot of resiliency in our entrepreneurs and small businesses. We are seeing for the first time small businesses stepping up and helping one another. We're seeing a lot of partnerships being formed with small businesses. And some of those are making the news and making the headlines as small businesses are coming together to, a lot of our local breweries were coming together to offer kind of a one-stop curbside, pick up your 6-pack and your takeout food. We've seen some interesting collaborations with local artists because the majority of them are not able to perform right now. So we're seeing some organizations support local artists through their Zoom calls and asking for donations for their artists. And we're really seeing then our small businesses being able to pivot and help one another.
Very good. I know that you've been conducting a Thursday morning Zoom call. Is that still something that's ongoing? Is it open to the public? Can you provide any insights on that? Because although I haven't been able to join, your follow-up's been excellent, and I appreciated some of the insights that have come out of it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yep. So our Thursday morning calls we have transitioned those to every other week, and they're actually for the resource providers. So it gives I talked about the network of providers that we have. It is invite only for those network providers, but it then gives all of the providers a chance to come together, talk about what's happening within their organizations, help one another troubleshoot some of the issues that might be coming up that their businesses need, and allow us as a network of support to better support our businesses by sharing what we know, different things that we're learning, and then taking that forward to our businesses.
Got it. I guess the follow-on question then would be, how does one become a resource partner? And because I know there's probably some folks on here that could be able to help in that capacity. What does that look like? What do you need? How does one qualify? Those kinds of things.
So to be a KCsourcelink resource partner, you have to be a nonprofit, a government agency, or an educational institution that is providing free or low-cost assistance for businesses. There is a form online. I will get that pulled up and put it in the chat as well. But we really want to know kind of what your business is or what your organization is doing, who you're working with, the types of services that you're providing, and how you're helping the business community. So again, since KCsourcelink is a grant-funded program of the university, we can't make referrals to those for-profit organizations, but we can work more with those for-profit entities in order to make sure that your programs and services are being seen. We also offer Kansas City's most comprehensive business calendar. So if you're offering educational trainings or events, we can help put those on the calendar and promote those. And then again, the resource partner is for those that are offering free and low cost assistance.
Got it. Very good. Rich, did you have a question or a comment, sir?
I do. How could you tell? I've been fascinated with a visual that KCsourcelink put together a few years ago, and being a traveler, having ridden on the Washington Metro and the London Underground, they have this thing called a resource rail, which kind of can guide you wherever you are on the journey and pointing to the resources that might be appropriate. I love that visual.
Thank you. So yes, it is the KCsourcelink resource rail. As we have been working over the past 17 years with entrepreneurs and businesses, we found that the resources cluster around 4 types of businesses. So the micro enterprise, the small 1 to 6 person business, maybe an online presence instead of a physical location. A lot of times these businesses classify themselves as a freelancer, as a solopreneur, as a sole proprietor. We then have the main street businesses, so the brick and mortar businesses, independent retailers, restaurateurs, doctors, lawyers. The second stage businesses, so those are set up and well established, but have the capacity and the ability to scale that business and grow, maybe looking at opening another location or a professional management team. And then our innovation-led businesses. So those new products, new technologies, kind of the intellectual property, the fast growing businesses. And so we then look at, I talked about the resources cluster around, and we are able to define businesses based on those categories. And then the resource rail simply breaks it down and looks at, if you have an idea and you want to start and you're an innovation led, here's your rail. These are the resources that you need to know about and you need to access at each step of your business journey. And then the rail actually combines all of those. So it looks like a subway map. It's actually brainchild of when we were in DC one time and we're on the DC Metro subway system. So.
Very cool. A couple of granular questions. Can you type in the name of that book that you held up for us? Because I'm not familiar with it, but I thought.
You can't get it anywhere. As of right now, yeah.
What kind of promotional tour is that?
I know. Here, I'll do, so yeah, we actually had these printed the week before quarantine and so have not been able to hand them out.
Maybe you could talk.
Online version, I'll find it.
Okay, maybe while you're doing that, I know it's by association, but for those people who are really interested and are kind of geeks about entrepreneurism and ecosystems like I am, could you talk a little bit about Maria and Karen's book that came out a couple of years ago?
Kate, yep, Maria and Kate.
I apologize, Kate Holt.
Yeah, so, gosh, I am forgetting the title of their book. So I meant Maria Myers is the person that developed KCsourcelink and developed then the technologies and has been able to really amplify entrepreneurship as a form of economic development across the United States. Kate Hodel has worked in entrepreneurship and small business development for her entire career. She's worked at Kauffman Foundation and Rockhurst and was one of the original people with KCsourcelink and has helped that grow. So the two of them came together and wrote a book on, it's kind of the playbook for building infrastructure around entrepreneurship. and it walks people through how you go about doing that, best practices for leading networks, how you identify services for entrepreneurs within your community, how you then work to build this network and then connect the entrepreneurs and the businesses to the resources that they need. And then looking at the measures that you need to institute when you are building this network. So we have some economic development beyond collisions. Thank you, Kim. When you look at economic development, so many people are focused immediately on jobs created, on the number of jobs that these are bringing in, looking at the investment that's coming with that. When you're building infrastructure for entrepreneurs, you need to measure different things, especially as that infrastructure is being developed. So looking at the number of service providers that are servicing entrepreneurs and small businesses, we're actually able to dig down and measure the number of jobs that are being created by our new and young firms. So a lot of times we hear so-and-so is bringing a new headquarters to Kansas City and it's bringing in 400 jobs. We know that our small firms are creating more than 14,000 jobs every year within Kansas City. And so we're able to kind of shine the spotlight on those entrepreneurs and those small businesses by looking at different measures and different ways of looking at economic development.
Good. Thanks for sharing. And Kim put the name of the book in. I had the same brain freeze as well. Beyond Collisions, How to Build Your Entrepreneurial Infrastructure. I can't recommend it enough, even if you're just looking for some good beach reading. It's really informative, great case studies, but also talks about outcomes and methodologies too. I appreciate it when it first came out. And I guess
it's a pretty quick read.
Yeah, it's an easy read. Because we're getting down to our time here, anybody else have questions for Jenny today? Go ahead, Rebecca.
Jenny, so if I'm a solo entrepreneur and I just want to kind of maybe start this process of learning more about potentially what, KCsourcelink can offer me in my respective field, would the best way to start just be to call the hotline?
Yep.
Thank you.
So yes, again, we have a very comprehensive website. I like to lead with that. Our website has more information on it than you will ever need for your business, but it is a lot of information. So feel free to go online and look at that. But I think it's a little overwhelming. So please pick up the phone and call.
So one of the events that SourceLink does is the Global Entrepreneurship Week. Where are we standing on plans for that? It's traditionally in middle of November, I know. Any thoughts on how that's going to look this year?
It will not look how it has in the past. That we know for sure. We are figuring out right now how we're going to move that online and what that's going to look like. How we can make sure that especially those that might not have broadband access can still access the information and the events that are held during that time period. So Global Entrepreneurship Week is the third week of November. And in the past, we have done 5 days of hundreds of events and bringing people together into one centralized location. With social distancing policy and with the unknowns that November might bring, we're looking at how we can make sure that that event is able to be held despite what might be thrown at us at that time period.
Sure. Well, I'll raise my hand if you guys need any help with decentralized locations, watch parties, whatever.
Thank you.
Our businesses would be happy to support that. Anybody else before we let Jenny go to her next meeting?
No, I just want to say, Jenny, thank you so much for all that you do for the region. And if you're hearing anything that local gov can do, please let us, or if you have any questions about any local gov contact, I'm happy to connect you. We're in extraordinarily interesting times, and you know, I think we're all in this together. I think we all understand how interconnected we are. So if you need anything, or if you're hearing feedback that perhaps one of us could be doing something else, please feel free to share. I always like to hear that kind of information, even if I don't hear it directly.
And we're actually hearing kind of opposites of that right now, Kim. A lot of times we hear, you know, oh, government, but this is the first time that we have seen government step up, local and federal level step up and really support small businesses. And I think they realize that and they appreciate it. And so it's been very, I keep saying interesting, just because we haven't gone through something like this before, but to see really governments step up and recognize the importance of small business throughout our communities.
Great. I have one last question for you. There's a lot of speculation on the recovery of the economy. Some economists are looking at a V recovery. Some are looking at a sort of a steady long-term recovery. I'm putting you on the spot. Either you have statistical data to support your opinion, but I'd be welcome for your opinion given your vantage point.
So actually, for the KC Metro, there is a data and analysis team that has been funded through the Civic Council and the KC Rising initiatives, and we help with the data and analysis of that team. And so they actually just released a report last week, 2 weeks ago, that talks about where they're expecting the recovery for the Kansas City Metro. And it's goes by 2 years. So we're looking at, for full recovery, coming back either Q4 of 2021 or Q2 of 2023.
It's a wide range.
Yeah. So that I will say, when that analysis was run, we had not yet looked at what the civil unrest due to systemic racism was doing in the economy, which is going to affect some of the recovery. It also depends on what resurgence of COVID-19 is going to do for the economy. And it really fluctuates depending on consumer confidence.
Got it. Very good. Well, thanks again for joining us today. Always appreciate your insights. You have a unique perspective. And what do you want, Rebecca? You pointing?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to confirm a lot of the benefits of KCsourcelink. We use them all the time. And Jenny, we probably need to catch up. And one last thing was go Panthers.
Oh, boy. You have a half hour to use that.
I have.
Sorry, Rebecca, you were pointing to the opposite side where Jamie was. So that's operator error on my part. I apologize.
It's different on every screen. So I was just pointing to Jamie on my screen.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. Always appreciate to see your bright, shiny faces and or black boxes with your names on them. So thanks for showing up, and we'll see you all next Wednesday. Jenny, thanks again. Always appreciate your insights. Yes. And if anyone has questions or wants more information on any of the data or anything, feel free to let me know. MillerJ@KCsourcelink is my email, or you can call our hotline and I'll grab the phone, and happy to share any resources or data that I have. Very good. We'll see you all next Wednesday. Thanks again for joining up. Take care. Bye.
Bye, Bob.